welcome back to the Mud Rib Podcast. We're glad to have you with us. Today, we are going to be talking about hospitality. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about because I love to be hospitable. I know that is not something that everyone wants to do. You might be thinking, I don't really want people in my house. But bear with us. Hopefully, we will help convince you that having people in your home and being hospitable is something that is on God's heart and should be on our heart.
Interestingly enough, one of the ways that I like to address this is for people saying that's not my gift. In 2015, I wrote a book called Eat Your Way to God, and Kelli helped me write the third chapter on hospitality. And I talk about in the chapter how a relationship I had with a pastor's prayer circle and was sharing the things that we do from our home to impact our community and to make disciples. And one of the guys said, well, that's just not my gift. And I said, I really don't think you have a choice whether it's your gift or not. I think it's actually a command, and it's a value of the kingdom to spread the essence. And so in the third chapter, we talk about the foundation of Christ's movement didn't remain in the temple. It was laid in homes with pockets of people who had committed their allegiance to him. It appears that they gave not only their lives, but their homes to be used for gatherings to support the movement, to disciple new believers, to lovingly host journeying strangers and those who were suffering persecution from nearby places. And Jesus said this, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. What about these verses? Now the elder or the mature follower of Christ or overseer must be above reproach, the husband of but one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, and able to teach. 1 Timothy 3:2. And one of the things when I teach about the scriptures on the elders is that is a picture of maturity, not a position. That every one of us should desire to be mature. It's not like it's saying that guy can't beat his wife or get hammered drunk because he is an elder. Shouldn't all of us desire to not be hammered drunk and beat our wives? Absolutely. Shouldn't we all pursue opening our homes and fulfilling the love and compassion to Christ around us? Absolutely. And so for Titus 1:8, rather he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. This is to all the church. How about 1 Peter 4:9? Offer hospitality one another without grumbling. There's a strong connection between the loss of our vision and mission and the loss of hospitality. One of my favorite quotes supports this. If every Christian family in the world simply offered good conversation around a table once a week to neighbors, we would eat our way into the kingdom of God. So hospitality is essential for us to see the kingdom move forward.
So we're going to talk about a lot of really practical stuff related to hospitality today. And so if you are able to write some of this stuff down, that would be great. If not, it's going to all be in our show notes, of course. But one of the things I want to start with is saying that I have not always been good at this. Not that I didn't want to have people in our home, but I didn't even know how to cook when we first got married. And so I've had to learn a lot of things, and I've done a lot of things wrong in this process too, where I stressed myself out about things that weren't really important and missed the point. But over time, so I want you to know, like we always say, this is 35 years of us doing this together. And so there's no expectation you're going to be doing all of these things. Maybe you've been doing it long enough, you will be, but just start somewhere. So I've had a lot to learn. One of the things that we started out doing when we first got married is any home that we were going to live in, we started by thinking about, is this home conducive for people to live in. I mean, sorry, not people to live in, people to come here and be at our
Right.
house. Everything from can people park? So we often would buy corner houses so that there was more room for people to park. Is the living room situated in such a way that it's open and people can get to our kitchen easy? And will it be inviting for people to come here and be at our home for groups? Can a large gathering come here? So that was just a starting point for us. So maybe you're in the process of thinking about where you're going to live. Can you do that? Now, I also want to preface this by saying no home is perfect. And you should never let what your home looks like, the way it's structured, to keep you from hosting people. This is just helping you understand that this is how so important to us, that everything that we have done has been with this in mind.
Yeah. And these things we're talking about, the hospitality challenges our flesh and our selfishness. So how am I, one, stewarding the home that I have? If my home is trashed, what does that do to represent the kingdom? So there are some things that I need to do practically to show that I'm a better steward of what God has given me. And hospitality kind of smacks that in the face. And how am I stewarding things? It also challenges me on my level of trusting God, because often there are cultures that, and some rightfully so, that I don't trust anyone, and I'm not trusting anyone to come into my house. And so then the question is, okay, is it your house? Is it God's? And are we going to use it for his kingdom? We want to be wise as serpents and gentle as dove. But the point is, am I being selfish about my home and about my desire to be isolated from people?
I want people to know that no home, we should not worry about our homes being perfect.
Right.
But even if you're not hosting people, we should be caring for the things that God has given us and thinking of it as stewarding it well, so that it's not breaking down, falling apart all the time, things like that. And so that's just a basic principle of being a follower of Jesus, but it applies to making it easier to have people in our homes when we're doing that regularly and not having to scramble to, fix things.
I remember one of our disciples in the early 2000s basically coming to Christ and being raised up and desiring to be a laborer and using their home, and in their simple church, their gathering, their healing community, that basically just submitted this to them, and that the community helped them clean up their home in order for them to host people.
I'd totally forgotten
What
about
an
that.
incredible story it was. And they began to host youth there and opened their home.
Yes.
And opened their life up to the community to basically just say, here's my mess. Will you help me bless my mess so that God can use it for others?
I remember that. I had totally forgotten about that. Going in, cleaning, sorting things out. I mean, it was a mess, and they're still laboring in the kingdom today.
Amen.
So that is really good. Really good. One of the other things that we've done is we had a Taco Monday. Instead of Taco Tuesday, it was Taco Monday. And there are disciples from that Taco Monday that still look back on that as a memorable time. And we recently had one of those people back out to our house, and we did tacos in memory of Taco Monday. But there are relationships that have been built from that would not have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
And I looked forward to that.
Yep. So why is Taco Monday better than Taco Tuesday?
It just doesn't rhyme.
No, well, it's better because it comes
before Tuesday.
You get to eat the tacos before the Taco
yeah.
Tuesday people. That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. And the good thing about tacos is that you're going to have the same thing every week, and it's easy to fix. You don't have to think about what you're going to have. So anyway, practically, one of the other things I want to talk about is hosting a gathering or hosting a church in your home. This would be kind of a next step. Maybe you start with some individuals. Maybe you want to host your church. Maybe you're not the one facilitating, but the way that you can serve the church is by hosting. And just practical things. I know this may seem silly to have to say this, but it just helps to know these things. One of the things I always tell new people hosting is turn your air down an hour or two before people get there. Because when bodies get inside of your house, you've kind of lost hope at that point, because the air is not going to catch up with all the heat that's in your house, or vice versa if it's too cold. And so we always say, keep your air. I mean, your air is going to be different in everybody's home, but at our house, we can probably keep it at 70 and people are going to be freezing. But at some places you might need to turn it to 65 so people are cool enough. But you always want to think about the temperature in your house. The other thing is thinking about, we have dogs. And so that can be really challenging when people come to our house. Not everybody, you have to remember, you might love your dogs, but not everybody else is going to like dogs. And we actually had several neighbors that were terrified of dogs. And so I'm not going to just try to force my dog on them because I want them to get better. I need to be kind and respect. Excuse me. And so put your dogs away. There are some dogs that may be worse being put away. And so you might need to do something different with them, but because they're barking so much. But just be aware of distractions, things like that in your home. I always say make sure your house is well kept in such a way that people don't feel like it's so dirty. They're afraid to eat your food because the house is so dirty. That's a real thing. I mean, we went to someone's house one time and their house was super clean, but they had German roaches because they lived in a really rough apartment complex. And I admit I had to pray and ask God to help me eat their food when I was there because there were so many German roaches. That's an extreme thing, but you don't want your house to be so dirty that people don't want to eat your food.
Right.
Because cleanliness, does affect how you cook your food.
You're going to say cleanliness is next to godliness.
No.
I was like, oh, we're going old school religion.
But you want the food to think it's going to be clean. Anyway, but you also don't want your house to be like a museum. Right. Have you ever been to a house, especially if you take your kids, and you're afraid to sit on the couch because you're afraid your kids are going to dirty it? I know my kids tease me that I have a white couch now because I have grandkids, but I'm past that. I don't have little kids at home. And I'm also know that couch is not mine. It's God's couch. Do I want people eating and drinking on it? No. But if something gets on it, it's God's. I'm not going to fret over something getting on my couch. And so I think that's a big part.
Yeah. And the other thing is being okay. It's okay for you to have some house rules. When we talk about people hosting gatherings and churches in their homes, we say that it's real important to communicate the house rules. And some cultures and some families don't want shoes on the house. So everybody just take your shoes off at the door. They don't want food on a certain couch. Okay. Don't have food on the couch. Make sure that you say if they don't want people back in some back rooms, don't go back into the back rooms. Mm-hmm. Just things like that. Just communicating boundaries is also just part of this, having honest, upfront conversations.
Yeah. And it's really simple just to say, hey, here's some house rules we have. Yeah. And that way you don't have to feel bad about these are our house rules. They're specific to our house. One thing I will say, I really have been impressed and pleased and happy and thankful that Guy is this way. He's always protected me when it comes to the aftermath of having people at our house. And has always said, and we kind of made it a house rule, when we host, everybody helps clean up. And so at the end of every gathering, he would say, hey, everybody, before you leave, part of what meaning us being family together is we're going to help clean up. Here's some things you can do. Fold the chairs, put them away. Everybody put your trash away, put dishes in the sink, just to make things easier for Kelli. Some people think as being a host, my job is to do everything for everyone. And that's kind if it's just one meal. But if you're talking about hosting people often, then you will burn out. And so you must have that type of training of people coming into your home.
Yeah, we're talking about hosting spiritual family here that are agreement. And as family, there's nothing wrong with having expectations of us to work together as a team. It's never been a problem for me to say, hey, guys, we're family together. We've been gathering here. And when we gather in other places, we just need to make sure that we just don't come blowing in, leaving a mess, and then having them to pick it up, particularly when there's a lot of dual income families where the wife is working hard and so is the husband. And it's just challenging. Or if we've got a ton of kids and we're homeschooling and the house needs to be cleaned up. And so there's nothing wrong with that as a family. Now, when we have guests that we're reaching out to, we don't do that. But as a family, we say, look, we have expectations here and everyone needs to do their part. One of the things that has happened in our culture is we're such consumers that we want everyone else to do something rather than us do stuff together and have responsibility. But we love to say responsibility is like fertilizer. It helps people grow.
Yeah. And if you are discipling people, this is a great way to be a model for them for what they should do. I mean, I hope that I taught my kids well enough to know that when you go and stay in someone's home, you ask, what do I need to do with the sheets afterward? Where would you like for me to put the towels? How can I help you before I leave? And so we just want to do the same with our disciples when we have them in our home, is what we're doing is serving them, but also helping them see how they can serve others in their own home. And so anyway, we could go on about that for a long time, just out of a lot of experience, but that's just one thing that we wanted to mention.
Yeah. So we see this hospitality, the household, being a place where people were invited into to hear the gospel, to see the gospel lived out around the dinner table, but also the church, the followers of Christ, the people of God, also gathered around a table, around the Lord's table in homes.
That's right. That's right.
And so they would break bread together and share what they've been learning together.
Yes. And again, it goes back to vulnerability. Having people in your home is something vulnerable. And so it's really important. One of the things that we made a priority of when our kids were teenagers is we wanted to be the house everybody wanted to be at. And in this current culture, man, you should want the kids to be at your house. You should know your kids' friends because it's not safe in a lot of places. And so we, at different times, based on different levels of income, we've done things from just having board games available. But when we had a little more resources, we made sure we had a ping pong table and we bought a basketball goal and we bought a trampoline so that there were things for kids to come over and do.
Yeah, when our daughter was in middle school, junior high, we hosted about 5 groups, different ages. Ended up being about 5, where so much so that they wore the carpet on our stairs going upstairs.
Yeah.
They met upstairs. We had a big upstairs game room area, and they met in one large group, and then they broke into small groups. And we saw God use our daughter and our house to lead many young people to Christ during that time, from her 6th, 7th, 8th, and even into 9th grade years, where our home became an outpost of reaching young people in our community.
So if you have kids, I always say, and even if you don't have kids, be a place that all of your friends want to be, because it is a way to share the gospel, to be an example to others, and to love people well. And it's just a place where people, teenagers felt safe there. So when kids came over later after that Wednesday night, we had opportunity to talk to them because they felt like we really cared about them. And so we realized these are progressive steps of doing things that maybe be more and more out of your comfort zone. So you have to start somewhere, but we just want to give you examples of what we've done through the years, depending on where you are in this process. One of the things that I talk about in this book is what is the difference between decor and relationships. I liked having everything matching and doing a theme party. Oh, we're going to do tacos. Let's do, fiesta party. And I would do matching plates. And they were all paper plates, mind you. But I just love doing that kind of stuff. But after a while, one, it got expensive, and 2, it wore me out because I was always having to think about the next best creative thing. I would highly recommend don't do that. Because it gets tiring. And what would happen is sometimes I would be so worried about things or so busy doing things that I would miss out and be so tired by the time people got there that I didn't have time to value the relationship. Now we have dogs, so I have to vacuum before people come over, but I don't mop my floor before people come over. I realized after a while, I just mop my floor and my floor is dirty 5 minutes after people get here. So just a note to people, mop your floor after people leave. It's just make sure it's picked up and cleaned up, but you do not need to spend hours making sure everything is. I started realizing, do I really go over and notice if people's houses are dusty or there's a few things sitting out? Because you have to know me. I don't like anything on my counters. And so if I think things are sitting out, people are going to think my house is messy. So I had to die to that. And I realized when I go to other people's houses, I don't notice any of those things. And I'm a perfectionist about stuff and I don't notice those things. So do I think people are going to come over and notice that about my house? No, they care more about the relationship, and so should I.
Some might, but that's the point is that you're talking about the relationship, and less is more, and not burning yourself out on this, not being more like Mary and caring more about the value of sitting at Jesus' feet than being busy trying to run around and get everything perfect.
And I will tell you that I've had people come into my house before that wasn't on a night that we were hosting where things were picked up. And it actually made them feel good to know my house was lived in and kind of messy, because we don't want to give an idea to people that my house is perfect all the time and I can never keep up with that. I know that sounds silly, but
as our friend Curtis Sargent has been quoted as saying, everything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
There you go. Thanks, Curtis, for that. Now, a really big leap that you could do to be hospitable is to consider having people live with you. And that is a big leap for many people. But I will say that it was a huge and has been a huge part of ministry for us. Now, I will tell you up front, I'm not in the stage of life that I want people living here long term now, but short term is fine. But we spent, out of our 35 years of marriage, I would say probably 29 of those, someone lived with us.
And now people come in for weekends. We have the Bethel House, which is a leadership development home, and people come and stay with us regularly. I mean, we've had in the past, 2 months, we've had several, groups come in and stay with us for extended days.
And so some of the things, though, we want to talk about having people live with you. And these are things that we've learned from is, first of all, you have to consider the who. who's coming to live with you. If you want to do a background check on someone before they live with you, don't feel bad about doing that, especially if you have children. There is nothing wrong in this current climate to feel like you have every right to do that. But we had daughters and we had 3 kids, but our son joined us when he was 8. And at the time, early on, when people lived with us, it was either just us or our daughters. And so we had to take into serious consideration, who is it that's coming to live with us? What's their background, their reason for living with us? And when we had a house that was bigger and there was 2 separate bathrooms, it made it a little easier. But just teaching your children about boundaries, things that they need to communicate if it's inappropriate, anything that makes them uncomfortable. You have to think about all those things. But those shouldn't be deterrents from us having people live with us, because many good things have come from people living with us. But we always recommend that you have a contract. So having a contract allows the contract to be the bad guy, and it sets expectations up front. So, for example, our contracts have talked about how much money people are going to pay us rent. We're not talking about people living with us for free. We feel like everybody has a responsibility and they should contribute. Now, we want to do it oftentimes in a way that would help them, but it also covers the cost of them. It shouldn't cost me money for them to live with me. They can at least cover groceries, a little bit of the electricity and water, but they can also help by doing things. And so some of the things that we would have people do, and it was in our contract, that because I was cooking these meals, that everyone helped clean up afterward. Everyone that was there for dinner had to help clean up afterward. Yeah. If you weren't going to be home for dinner, you let us know as soon as possible. If you weren't going to come home at night for some reason, that you would text one of us so that in the morning we didn't wake up and be worried. It was just a common courtesy. But the main thing that we put in our contract in the very beginning, first statement, that people understood that they were moving into our home to be a part of our family, and that they had to make decisions for themselves about what they were going to do, but they were inviting us into speaking into their lives. So anybody that was living with us was not just because they were down on their luck. It's because we were going to be investing in them as disciples. And so we made it clear up front, we will provide you with feedback. You have to do what you think is right, but you are allowing us and willingly saying we can speak into your lives.
So this was a way for us to invest typically in the next generation of leaders, to raise up disciples. And this gives us an incredible amount of time together, because most of us consider discipleship 1 hour a week at a coffee shop or at some kind of study, rather than being in community and being exposed to each other a significant amount of time. When Jesus spent 3 years at 3 miles an hour modeling for his disciples, there was significant amount of time in that investment that you can never do at 1 hour a week.
There's so many things I think about having people live with us. And one guy in particular was always, he would come in, he was there for dinner, and then all of a sudden he kind of stopped coming in until after we went to bed. And that you wouldn't know things like that. But that was just a clue to me that something was off. And I asked him, is there something going on that's caused you to not want to be here during that time that maybe you're not wanting to share with us? And there was something that he was doing that he didn't want to talk about, but it was good accountability. Those are the kind of things that you find out when people live with you. So we have everything from what day is your laundry? Don't touch the air conditioner. That's a pet peeve of guys. Anybody in our house knows, especially our kids and people live with us, is that people would just go in and turn the air down to like 65.
Yeah, particularly we were living in this massive 2-story that was not very well insulated, and the bills would get up to $500 or $600.
Yeah, so Guy was losing his mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was don't touch the AC unless you talk to Guy. And here's your laundry day. But if you need to do it it's not to be legalistic, but if you need to do your laundry another day, just ask Kelli, because we also had a whole family of people we were trying to make sure we could run the household. So that's a lot of details around that, but I can't stress enough how important it is to do a contract up front for whatever you think is necessary. But to have the discipleship piece in there, if that's the purpose of you being hospitable to people.
Yeah, and so it also gives us a great opportunity to work on our confrontation and crucial communication skills.
Oh, man.
So be curious, ask good questions, be confident about stating the things that need to be stated, like boundaries, and then be as clear as you possibly can. So that's how we bring clarity. So super important.
I'm just thinking of a story that we've had some family members live with us before, and one of them would often want to buy new things for my house and just replace a rug or something. And I had to have this conversation that was not an easy conversation. But I said, I would really appreciate it if I like that you want to do things for me, but I would rather you not buy things and replace my stuff without talking to me first. And they said, oh, well, I can just take it back. And I said, I would still prefer that you talk to me about it first, because I feel once you've already bought it, to say yes to it, even though I don't really want it here. And so those are the kind of hard conversations you have to have. And it really does mature you. I've grown so much from having people live with us. It's been a refining process, but it's been a good process and so life-giving and rewarding.
And we know that some of this stuff can really be challenging, but the idea is for us to embrace uncomfortable things in order to move forward. And we're not saying you start out maybe all the way here where you're raising up leaders to people living with you, but start somewhere. Start opening your home, start sharing meals with people and just having good conversations and asking good questions. And that it starts somewhere where you start embracing the value of hospitality.
And I just want to end with saying this. I know finances, especially in this current culture, are difficult for many people. And so it does not have to be food. It can just be a cup of coffee. If you live in Texas, it could be sweet tea. But just something that you can do. And coffee is not that expensive if you're doing it at home, but do something that is within your budget to have people over and spend time with them.
Or you could follow Jesus's example in Luke 19 and meet a wealthy guy that you impact his life and say, hey, man, I'm going to your house today, Zacchaeus. Just invite yourself.
When we read that the other day at our church, we were talking about that. I was like, I don't know if I could just invite myself to people's houses.
I'm going to your house today, bro.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
He was always ready to party. They were accusing him of eating with sinners. So he came eating and drinking.
Yep. There you go. Start a Taco Monday.
Amen.
So we really love the idea of hospitality. That's why we have the Bethel House to continue that, and we'll continue that. But we just want to encourage you to recognize that hospitality is not about what we're gifted at. It's something that God desires from all of us at some level.
Yeah, I think it's a posture, not even about our home and food. It's about, am I opening up my life to God and to others and saying, welcome in? Do I have that kind of attitude and openness towards people? Is my heart hospitable towards Jesus, where I opened up my life and my heart to him and said, Jesus, come in and dine with me. May I be intimate with you. And may you have that kind of attitude towards others. And there's been a lot of hurt in all of our lives. And so one of the things we need to do is deal with the hurt in our lives and open our life up to the purpose of impacting others, because we've made our hearts Christ's home. And so therefore that means that we need to open our lives up to others.
And so as we close out, if you maybe, let's say you don't want to be hospitable, my suggestion to you is to ask God to help you want to be. Just, Lord, help me want to be hospitable. Help me to see the things in my life maybe that are keeping me from being hospitable. Invite your community in, like this one family did, to help you if there's things that need to be done at your home because you want to be more hospitable. Just ask yourself good questions about the why.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels inauthentic and fake. And we think if our feelings are saying it's fake, then I must be fake. I want to remind you that your identity as an ambassador and representing the King of Kings, whose heart is hospitality, he says, come and see, come with me, dine with me. And it's not inauthentic. It's embracing your identity to be hospitable to others. That's who you are, not how you feel about it, but who God says you are. And that's essential in this process, to embrace who you are.
It's good. So until next time, thanks for joining us on Mud and Rib Podcast.
God bless you. Have a great day.